Okay, I think we're ready to get going. Let's make sure. That's turned off, that's turned off, that's turned off, that's turned on. I think we're live, so we can go ahead and get into this. So then let's get into this. Starting soon? Nope. Starting now. Hello! Shadowcat back! And we are back to work on the Warhammer module. And we have been working at this for so long. I mean, it is insane how long we have been working on Warhammer. But, I mean, that is fair. It is fair. Warhammer is huge. So, spending a lot of time on it, not really a surprise. Not everything can be a quick and easy one. This will probably be the biggest module we ever do, let's be honest. Anything that we do after this, I don't know how it is going to compare. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm not sure how those are going to turn out. However, last time we were here, we finished working on our Eldar vehicles. We got all their tanks done. We got all their planes done, which was pretty easy because they don't really have a whole lot of them. I mean, when it came to the planes, even though they identify as having like 7 different planes, they're all so very similar that they're all basically the same. The only real difference is some of the planes have just a pilot, some of them have an optional gunner, and that's about it. After that, it's up to you what you want to do with them. So we were able to narrow down pretty much all of their last vehicles into, and let me just go back here and check. Actually, before I do that, I mean, why not? First off, let's look at the chat. I see that Blizz is in the chat. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you there. And we may as well bring in our spreadsheet so that we can look at this together. So when it came to the super heavy tanks, we got a Lynx, which only has 1 pilot. We've got the Engine of Vol that you can customize however you want, and that's got 1 pilot and 1 gunner. Not to mention however many spirit stones you can plug into it. We're going to get into that later. We made their walker. They only have 1 walker. You can customize it as you will. They only really have 1 aircraft. Again, gunner is the second seat is optional. It's up to you. You can have 20 bulk, or you can have an optional gunner. And then, again, you can customize that as you will. Now, the one thing that we have to do today, before we can get into the Wraiths, is the last thing we did was we realized that there was a whole bunch of vehicle weapons that we really need to cover. And so we got to do that first. However, they are just vehicle weapons, and I do believe that they're going to be super easy to take care of. To the point where I'm actually going to make an entire section here just for vehicle weapons. I'm not going to add or leave them in the Eldar weapons. So we're going to go through, we're going to clean this out. We're going to look for the vehicle weapons. Scorpion's Claw, Triskill, Witchblades. I love the Witchblades still. I mean, in terms of the craziest things that I have ever made. Or no, wait, it wasn't the Witchblade, was it? No, that's just a force weapon. What was the one weapon that was absolutely just crazy? Mirror Sword, no. Mandiblaster, no. Harlequin's Kiss is insane and, like, violates... I actually think it violates every single aspect of the Geneva Convention. I mean, that's impressive right there. Oh no, it was the Dire Sword. That was the one that we made. That was the one where they hit you and you can just die. So it is a power weapon, which means it ignores armor and hardness based on the number of charges that it uses. And on wound, you have to make a will save. On fail, you advance in the mental disease track equal to the Dire Sword's tier. So anywhere from 1 step to 4 steps. And given that the disease track is only like 6 or 7 steps long. Yeah. Also, with a Dire Sword 4 at 100 charges, you can basically rest assured you can penetrate any armor and hardness. I love insane stuff like this. Like, that is final boss material right there. That is final boss material right there. You're invading some kind of Eldar craft world. You fought your way through the Eldar armies, okay? You've been blowing up their vehicles. You've been sneaking around, trying to disappear. You finally get to the last room. There's I was gonna say an ethereal, but that's Tau. But there's like this Farseer up there, and he just looks at you, narrows his eyes, pulls out a dire sword, and you're just like, all right, it's boss time. I cannot wait. Okay, but vehicle weapons. The only one in here I do believe is the shuriken cannon, and then down below the prism cannon. So we're just going to copy and paste this. While I'm doing this, though, just a little bit of side commentary. I'm still working on putting together a gaming group. Is this going to overwrite anything? Yes, it will, actually. Hold on. We'll put that there. I'm still working on putting together a gaming group. I'm having some limited success. I have several possibilities, but I can't get anyone to commit. Mostly, I've had several people say that they're interested. Again, the first game that we're going to do is going to be a Star Trek game. I had one person who said that they're interested in playing, but they don't know a whole lot about Star Trek, and I told them that's okay. You don't need to know a whole lot. For Star Trek, all you really need to know is, you know, humans, Vulcans, Romulans, Klingons, things like that. You got to know about, you know, starships and warp travel, which is just go really fast. You need to know about things like phasers and torpedoes, which are just, you know, laser beams and torpedoes. Pretty basic concept there. And, you know, once you do that, you'll pick up the rest of it in no time. The rest of it's just fluff. And, you know, mechanics-wise, everything is written down. We're using the Starfinder system. We've got a few modifications to make, and everything else is good. So, I've got a possibility there. I've got a couple of other people that say they're interested, but they haven't given me any kind of availability yet. As soon as I can put together a whole group, we're good to go. I just need like one more person. Right now, it's looking like a Friday or Saturday kind of game. But again, that depends on, you know, what I get. If I get 3 more people that say that they're interested in a Wednesday, then it'll probably be a Wednesday game. I gotta work with what I got. Alright, so vehicle weapons are moved over. I'm gonna take all of this and pull it down because we gotta have room to work here. So we're gonna knock out these vehicle weapons super quick, and after that we are going to get to work on the Wraiths, which, you know, is the fun part, so I really want to get to it. So we'll go ahead and copy this, and we will get to work. So the first thing on here is a scatter laser. It is a vehicle weapon. Now, with a scatter laser, that is essentially just like a shotgun, I think. And let's go ahead and get our browser in here, because we got to look these up. So I'm going to go with the Falcon Grav Tank as our example, because this thing, I do believe, mounts basically everything. Technical information, let's see, the weapon systems, yeah, this thing mounts basically everything. In addition to the standard pulse laser in the gunner's turret, did we add pulse laser on here? Yeah, pulse laser's on there. Yeah, okay. So the reason why scatter laser is on there first is because we started with the bikes. Actually, I take it back. That should be the better way to do this. We're going to go through these one at a time because I want to use this as a metric. Because one of the things that we have to establish is size. So, for the size, we have to go from like the bottom up. So like here, the prism cannon, it says size any. That's probably wrong. And the reason it's probably wrong is because I don't think you can put it on any of these medium vehicles. I do believe that the first instance that we see of a prism cannon is on the Falcon tank. So the size is going to have to be large. I mean, that makes sense, right? The scatter laser, however, I do believe that we see, yep, here on the Hornet. And Hornets are light, so these are just mediums. So shuriken cannons, scatter lasers. That means that shuriken cannons have to be any. And with the scatter laser, now we got to figure this out. So the scatter laser, the range on this thing. So scatter lasers, let me see if we can pull this up. It is a heavy laser weapon commonly used by the Eldar, originally created for Warwalkers and Wraith Lords, which also act as the support weapon for Guardian squads. What does it do, though? Right, it's comprised of 6 separate laser chambers which can be fired simultaneously or in bursts at either the same time or the same or different targets. Uses crystalline power cells to store energy. It is similar in some respects to the Imperium's multi-laser, but far more refined. Okay, so what we have here is there a weapon that we can actually compare this to? It's not a Gatling gun because it doesn't rotate and it can fire all of its chambers at once. Or it can fire them one at a time. The closest thing I can think of, and I don't have a picture of it handy, and I don't even know the name of it, but I remember seeing pictures of firearms during the kind of more experimental eras of like the turn of the century, where you would see a whole bunch of really interesting firearms because they weren't sure how they were going to work. They knew that they wanted more firepower, they knew they wanted a higher rate of fire, but before the eras of semi-automatics, they weren't sure how they were going to do that. And so you had handguns and rifles and things like that were actually multi-barrel. The idea being that you could pull the trigger and fire a barrel, and then you could rotate the barrel yourself. Or sometimes they would come with multiple triggers, one for each barrel, so you wouldn't have to rotate anything. It also meant that you could fire one, which is what you would normally do. Or if you really wanted to, you could pull a whole bunch of those triggers and fire every barrel on that thing at once. That's what this sounds like. So, what I think we're going to do is... this. Oh, and I see Tux is in the chat. Hello, Tux. It's good to see you again. I'm going to assume, because this picture is not great... it's kind of hard to see how many actual barrels this thing has. And this is a twin-linked scatter laser. So an actual scatter laser is just one of these. I'm going to assume that it has a, I'm going to assume that it has 6 barrels, and that way we can do this. We can make this... Hold on, I gotta think about this for a minute. Because there's a couple of ways that we could do this. If I gave it the automatic property, if I gave it automatic, that means that it could fire off 3 rounds in succession, you know, in a cone in front of it at half range, just like every single other, you know, every single other automatic weapon. However, it's also got to function as a shotgun. How does a shotgun work? In Starjammer, that would be a scattergun. Scatterguns are blasts. So it fires a cone that extends only to its first range increment. You cannot use it to attack creatures beyond that range. For each attack you make with a weapon with the special blast property, roll 1 attack against each target in the cone, starting with those closest to you. Each attack takes a -2 penalty, in addition to other penalties, and the penalty, or such as a penalty to all attacks during a full attack. Roll damage only once for the targets. If you roll 1 or more critical hits, roll the extra damage only once. Okay. So, as far as I see it, the only difference between a blast weapon and an automatic weapon is an automatic weapon is a little bit more flexible because the number of targets scales with how much ammunition it has. Whereas a blast weapon uses 1 round, and it just hits every target in the cone. Automatic is also only at half range, whereas blast is at the full range. Functionally, though, they are the same. Which means that I think the easiest way to do this... is going to... We're going to give it the blast, okay? We're going to give it blast, or... it can have single shots. Okay, it's going to have blast or single shot. Or, you know what? Maybe we just don't even do that at all. Like, I realize that it says that it's allowed to do both. What if we skip that? What if we just say, you know what? We have enough weapons as it is. This is just going to be the vehicle shotgun, period. We're going to do that, all right? So, real simple. Because a scatter laser can go on light vehicles, the size is going to be any. Because it is going to be just scatter weapon, the damage is going to be +1 die. The range on this thing, however, range is where we're going to get interesting. So... blast weapons. Where can I find the biggest blast weapon here? Let's go all the way down to number 17. Here we go. That would be the sonic weapons. Let's go back up a little bit. Here we go. A heavy stellar cannon. This is a level 15 heavy weapon. Okay. It has 32 shells, it wounds, it's a blast weapon. This is kind of everything that we wanted. And the range in this thing is 30 feet. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do. The vehicle weapon is going to be a blast, and it's going to be 60 feet. Okay? Because it is a vehicle weapon. And that means that it is a 60-foot cone where it hits everything in that cone. One thing that I should probably also specify in all of these is the type of damage. Yeah, we should probably be doing that, actually. So here's what we're going to do. We'll move this over. And we'll just put damage. Well, actually, I'll just put type. Okay, we'll just put type. We'll make that bold, centered. We'll copy and paste that down here. So, like the shuriken cannon, that's going to be slashing. The prism cannon is a laser, just like the scattered laser is. And laser weapons do fire damage. Because, you know, obviously they do. Alright, and under special, this is a blast weapon. And so there we go. That's it. That's going to be the scatter laser. Nothing super complicated there. Next, after that, so we can go ahead and delete that. Next is the star cannon, which is a plasma cannon. So it is a vehicle weapon. Now we just got to find information on it. Okay, twin star cannons. Let's take a look. Come on, here we go. Okay, star cannon is a plasma weapon designed by the Eldar using sophisticated electromagnetic pulses to guide bolts of destructive plasma to the target. Through its plasma core, the incandescent heat of a star, unlike its crude and clumsy Imperial counterparts, okay, it is just a vehicle-mounted plasma weapon then. Okay? That's all it is. So, let's go back and we're going to do the same thing we did for the scatter laser. We've got laser, plasma. Here we go. So we've got heavy weapons here. We've got these. And the thing about these weapons is we've got Starheart cannons and plasma cannons. The Starheart cannons have bright. What is bright? Attacks with bright weapons illuminate an area within 20 feet of you and your target for 1 round following the attack, increasing the illumination level by 1 step to a maximum of normal light. I like that. We're using that. Especially since this says Starheart Cannon, and this is a Star Cannon. Alright. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to take the best Starheart cannon we've got, and we are going to use this. So, the Starheart cannon has a range of 100 feet. I'm going to double it. 200 feet. The damage on this thing is only going to be a +1. For obvious reasons, because it's going on a light vehicle. The type for plasma is electric and fire. The size will have to be any. Special is going to be bright. And actually, I should probably put in also a separate slot for ammunition. So what if we move this over? And go capacity. So for the shuriken, It already says that it is limited to 1,000. We'll be able to delete that and just say 1,000 under capacity. For the prism cannon, which is an artillery laser, we're just going to say it has 100, 100, and for the star cannon also 100, just to make things easy. There we go. That makes things a little bit easier to read. Okay, so the star cannon has 100 shots. The special is bright. Is there anything else that we need? These star cannons also explode. Which, hey, I'm good with that. So we'll just say explode. And I want to step it up a little bit. I don't think that I want to double that necessarily. Because if we think about it, this is a weapon that if you put it onto like a light vehicle, if you make this a light weapon, it is only doing like 1d4 damage. Yeah, I'll go ahead and leave it 15 feet. That seems fair. It's going to be very low splash damage. Although, actually, now that I think about it, we've got to remember, we're multiplying vehicle damage by 5. So 1d4 times 5 is anywhere from 5 to 20 damage. Actually, that still seems really balanced. I'm good with that. So we'll go ahead and call this one good and move on to the Bright Lance. We will copy this. And we'll find information on the Bright Lance. Missile launchers are just missile launchers. Pulse lasers we will get to. Bright Lances. Open up. Thank you. Bright Lance is an Eldar laser weapon, the equivalent of the Imperium's last cannon. It operates the same way, firing a concentrated laser blast for destroying enemy vehicles. However, the weapon is far more efficient. Don't care. I know everything Eldar is awesome by default. So it is just a laser cannon? Actually, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And that also makes this really super easy. So up here, under laser, we have artillery lasers. The Zenith is a tier 20, so that's really good. We're just going to copy this stuff. So range, I'm going to double it to 300 feet. Damage is just going to be +1. The type is going to be fire. Size will be any. Capacity 100. Special? Absolutely nothing. This says that it does burning, but no, I don't think so. It's going to be just a big laser. It hits, it explodes, or it doesn't even explode. It just burns things, and that's it. Nothing else special about it. So let me go ahead and drag this down to where we're working. Next, pulse laser. Again, it is a vehicle weapon. Pulse laser. So what is it that makes a pulse laser special? Not that page, this page. So the pulse laser is an Eldar laser weapon capable of firing a stream of powerful bolts. Compared to the bright lance, it has a higher rate of fire and a longer range, though at the expense of penetrative power. So it is just an automatic pulse, or it's an automatic bright lance, which is great. That's fine. We can do that. So the pulse laser, I'm going to go ahead and, since I don't believe we have any automatic laser weapons, I'm almost certain we don't. Automatic. There are 26 automatic weapons. Actually, we do have automatic laser weapons. The auto beam rifles. And these things are just long arms. They have a range of 60 feet. What else do we have? Magnetar rifle. Magnetar rifle. Seeker rifles. Auto beam artillery? Oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. Alright, elite auto beam artillery. And it was right there the whole time. I was basically looking right at it. Alright, these have a range of 120 feet. And of course that means that when they fire an automatic, that comes down to 60. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make the range on this 240 feet. The damage is still only going to be +1. The type, fire, obviously. Size, any. Capacity, 100. Special, though, automatic. And there we go. We got a pulse laser. See, I told you this would not take long. Or at least it wasn't going to until we got to this. Doom Weaver. Vehicle, weapon. Also, I don't want an S on there. I didn't want that there. Alright. Doom Weaver. And here's where things get all different kinds of complicated. So the Doom Weaver is only going to be found on one vehicle. That's going to be the Night Spinner. Yep, there it is. Doom Weavers. That is just fun to say. Okay, it is a variation of the Shadow Weaver. It works by launching a large web of deadly wire high into the air. The web is made up of thousands of miles of incredibly strong monofilament thread that can shear through any substance, including steel or tank armor. Once launched, it floats ghostly downward, shredding any victims caught beneath it. On top of hitting the ground, the web forms a barrier that may dissect anyone crossing through it, but eventually it will settle into a solid blanket that can be moved over safely. Alright, so this is going to need some more complicated rules, but they're rules that we've already basically done. Although we may have to make some additions. So, we're going to come back here. We can actually delete this now. Okay, that's gone. Shadow Weaver. Okay, here we go. So, the Shadow Weaver is a bit less aggressive. So it entangles. It explodes, but that's because it explodes when it comes out. What we're gonna do... Okay, here's how we're gonna have to do this. So for the Doom Weaver, we gave it a range of 30 feet. Okay? So we're going to double that range to 60 feet. Okay? The damage is going to be, and let's see, the Doomweaver goes on a Night Spinner Grav tank, which is just, it's a tank, so the size is going to be large. The type of damage is going to be slashing. The damage is going to be +2. The capacity, though. So the capacity for this was 40 charges. So we'll go ahead and do that. Special, though. The special is going to be... Special is going to be this. We're going to have to add in a new type, or a new qualifier here. So obviously the special is going to be entangle, and because it has to cover an area, it has to explode. Now over here, these explode in a 20-foot radius. I'm going to make this a 25-foot radius. Just because I don't want to get too close. And lastly, it is going to constrict. Now, what does that mean? We have to add in our own thing here. So, constrict. This weapon covers an area equal to its explode radius. On every turn after the first, reduce the radius by 5 feet. All creatures and vehicles inside... I'm going to have to move this down. Are pulled 5 feet towards the center if they are entangled. Let's see, and every creature takes damage move this down again on constrict unless they successfully escape the entangle. So the way I see this working is the tank rolls up, or it's an Eldar tank, so it floats up. Okay? It lifts that barrel in the air, it fires the net then floats down onto everyone. Afterwards, you have to make a save versus being entangled. And I just realized I spelled entangle wrong. Again, this is a professional operation. So, it settles down on everyone. You have to make a save versus entangle, okay? And it is a 25-foot radius, so that's a pretty big radius. Afterwards, on the next turn, you get a chance to escape the entanglement again. If you fail to escape the entangle, then the constrict comes into play. Everyone is pulled towards the center of it, and they will take the 2 dice worth of damage. And it'll keep doing that and doing that, pulling everything towards the center, which, while I'm not giving it any kind of extra damage if people bump into each other or they all get pulled into the center, because I think that would be just too complicated, it will pull people into one area where you could then use AoEs on them. And, I mean, that'll be the real kicker there. So, I think that's good for the Doomweaver. Let's move on before I drive myself insane. We can delete that. And we can delete that. Next! The Distortion Cannon. Okay. Now we're getting into the weird stuff. So the Distortion Cannon is different. And I gotta look this up real quick. I believe that was on the Wave Serpent. Let's see. Was it? Artillery blast, shuriken cannon, shuriken catapults. Needed a drink there. Okay. No, I don't see it in here, though. So it wasn't this. Was it the Warp Hunter, then? Yep, here it is. Hull-mounted Distortion Cannon. Ooh, wait, go back. Look at that picture. That's a good picture. Come on, open it up. Make it bigger. Look at that. That is a cool picture. Not only is it cool because it's a cool picture, but there's a tank, and there's a couple of Eldar standing right next to it. For scale. Because we know how big Eldar are. They're just a little bit taller than humans. And I mean like a little bit, like maybe a couple of inches. In fact, there's probably Eldar that are shorter than humans too. That's the way these things work. That is a great picture. Honestly, I think we're already kind of in line with that though. Okay, D-Cannon. The Distortion Cannon, also known as the Displacer Cannon, Displacer, D-Cannon, Warp Cannon, or Warper. Using the same technology which allows ships to enter the nightmare realm of the warp, the Distortion Cannon causes an area of the material universe to momentarily collapse in on itself, essentially creating a miniature warp hole. If the target is lucky, then the violent, complex gravitational forces will merely tear it to pieces, guaranteeing almost certain death to living creatures, or total wreckage to vehicles. If not, the target is sucked completely into warp space. Okay. So essentially, we are firing little black holes. We do not have anything like this to use as a reference. We have to make this up the entire way. Now, since this came on the Warp Hunter, which is just a Falcon grav tank, the size of this thing is just going to be large. The capacity for this thing, I'm going to make 20. Just because, I mean, 20 is like one of the smallest increments that we have. And this thing is going to be incredibly powerful as it is. And the way this is going to have to work. So this thing is going to do damage, but also with a chance to be an instant kill, let's be honest. Because it says that the complex gravitational forces will tear things apart. So, I mean, that is a significant amount of damage. The type, warp? I don't even know. Type is gravity, I guess? As far as the damage goes, I'm going to give it +2 dice just because it is it's meant for heavy vehicles. The range. So the range on this thing is actually going to be really heavily dependent on what it does. And the reason I say that is because nobody's going to build a weapon that is a danger to itself. If this thing causes a black hole that reaches out for like 500 feet, nobody's going to put it in a weapon that only fires at 100 feet. I feel like I don't need to explain that. If I do need to explain that, let me know, and we'll set aside time later. So, I think before we can do anything at all, we first have to establish what this thing does and how mechanically it works. So it says here the size of the warp hole created depends on the size of the distortion cannon, with larger weapons requiring more power and a larger chassis to mount them. The largest distortion cannons are mounted on Eldar Cobras, and Phantom Titans and even Void Shields are useless against them. The terrifying weapons are capable of swallowing multiple battle tanks with one hit, and the shockwave that results from their sudden closure can knock over other armored vehicles lucky enough to avoid being dragged into the warp. This is one of those weapons that I should probably not even be doing. Because we just shouldn't be doing it. But we're here, so I'm doing it. Alright. So it says there the size of the warp hole depends on how big the cannon is. However, it says that these terrifying weapons are capable of swallowing multiple battle tanks in one hit. Now, if a tank, by default, is a large vehicle and therefore occupies a 15 by 15 by 15 cube, well, then theoretically, the most it should be able to swallow would be 4. I mean, if you had 4 that were aligned or arranged in a block, and you fired this thing into the middle of them, then yeah. However, this is also a case of like a singularity can be very small, but the gravitational forces can shear things apart into literal atoms. And so the actual size of the hole doesn't necessarily matter because everything fits in a black hole, okay? Everything fits in a black hole. It's just a matter of how long does it take. So here's how we're going to have to do this. There's going to have to be some extensive rules for this weapon. So I'm going to take this and drag this down. Just kind of out of the way for right now because we have to write some rules. Okay, so this I'm just going to call singularity because I don't know if I will need these rules again. So if I call it singularity, then we might actually be able to use this again. So for singularity, we are going to choose a target. And the thing is, it does not necessarily have to be like a target. We just need to figure out where we want to shoot it. So I'm just going to say instead, target a 5 foot by 5 foot area. Make a gunnery check. On success, place a singularity on that space. On fail of less than 5, place the singularity in one of the adjacent spaces. Roll 1d8. For every 5 for every 5 for every additional 5 you fail, roll a 1d8 and move the singularity appropriately. Okay, so you do not necessarily have to target a person, a tank, a building, whatever. You can technically fire the singularity wherever you want. All you have to do is pick the spot that you want to fire it and make your roll. However, if the gunnery check is, say, 15 and you rolled a 7, I mean, including your gunnery skill and everything, that means that because you failed it, and because you failed it by more than 5, you'll take the spot that you wanted to fire it to. You'll assign a 1 through 8 to all the squares around it, roll a d8, and it would go there. But because you failed it an additional time, because you rolled a 7 on a DC 15, the spot that it just landed, you'll again assign 1 through 8, roll a d8, and you'll drift the shot again. Alright, so that is the singularity itself. Now, as for the actual singularity. Now we gotta figure out area and what is it going to do. So the singularity, I'm gonna call this gravity well. So the gravity well, actually we do have a rule for this. I take it back, we do have a rule for this. The weapon damage type is going to be bludgeoning, and I know you can't see this, but you will when I bring this, or when I bring the stats back up and you can see them again. So it's gonna be bludgeoning. Okay, gravity well. So when the singularity lands, create a gravity well. And since this thing can suck in tanks, I'm going to go ahead and call it a gravity well. I'm going to say 20-foot radius. Actually, now that I think about it, hold on just a moment. Do we not have rules for this? Environment. Gas giants, stars, corrosive, no atmosphere. I thought that we did. Hazards. Let's see, slipstream, wormholes. I thought that we had this. Gravity. Atmospheres, gravity, aerial terrain, falling in gravity. Extreme gravity, but this is mostly for occupying a planet where there is extreme gravity, but this does not give me what I need. What we need is like rules for tidal effects. Alright, I don't know. So, when the singularity lands, create a gravity well 20 feet. Creatures caught in the, well, not just creatures. Let's see. Creatures and vehicles caught in the gravity well. That should be capitalized. Take damage equal to the weapon damage. And must make a reflex or piloting save or be pulled 5 feet towards the singularity. Let's see. Oh, one more thing that I forgot. Create a gravity well 20 feet. And additional increments until damage dice reach 0, reducing by 1 for each increment. So I just got to reformat this now. which, you know, typing in or doing this in a spreadsheet is not the easiest. Okay, there we go. So when singular lands, create a gravity well 20 foot and additional increments until damage dice reaches 0, reducing by 1 for each increment. Creatures and vehicles caught in the gravity well take damage equal to the weapon's damage and must make a reflex save or piloting save or be pulled 5 feet towards the singularity. And let's see. The DC for the gravity well is equal to the, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be equal to 10 plus, it'll be 10 plus the vehicle level plus what else? 10 plus the vehicle level plus Oh, 10 plus the vehicle level plus the gunnery, or plus gunner. No, not gunner. That's not a skill. Plus the You know what? I'm just gonna leave it there. Except I'm gonna increase this. It'll be 15 plus the vehicle level. Okay, so for every range increment after the first, reduce the DC by 5. Anything that touches the singularity, should be capitalized, is destroyed. And so that's really simple. So if on your next turn, when you would be moved towards it, any part of your character, or at least, you know, your occupied space, touches the singularity, whatever it is destroyed. Just period. So what do we got so far? You've got the tank. It fires a singularity. If they make the check, it lands exactly where they want. If they don't, they have to roll dice to see where it drifts. And actually, I'm going to redo this. I'm not going to roll this dice again. For every additional 5 you fail, move an additional square in the same direction. All right, so once it lands, you create a circle around it. It is a 20-foot radius. Everything inside that radius would take, in this case, let's go ahead and bring this back up. Everything would take 2 damage. If it's inside the first range increment, like the proper gravity well, it would take 1 dice of damage if they're in the next ring, and that's as far as it reaches, because the next ring after that would be 0. Anybody who is taking damage inside the gravity well has to make a save or be pulled towards it. Oh, and one more thing that I forgot to add, and that is duration. So, the gravity well will last for 2 rounds per vehicle level. Alright, so special, this is going to be singularity. Gravity well. So yeah, so it lands on the ground, it starts to pull everything in, it starts to crush everything as it's pulling it towards there, and if it's only a level 1 vehicle, it's only 2 rounds. So even if you were to fail your check on both rounds, you might not touch the singularity, but that also means that if it was a really, really high level vehicle, it could be there for a while, just pulling everything in the area in. Okay, so distortion weapons. Can we please move on now? This thing is so incredibly convoluted and dangerous that even I'm a little bit afraid of it. Alright, let's move on to things that, you know, make a little bit more sense. Next up we have pulsars. So let's just go ahead and copy this, paste. Okay. Pulsar. So these are just huge bright lances. We've already got bright lances. Actually, I didn't want to look there. I want to look here. So for a bright lance, I'm going to assume that this is going to go on, say, the Lynx. Or not the bright lance, the pulsar. Yep, pulsar. There it is. So it is an Eldar laser weapon mounted on Titans and super heavy tanks. Though similar to the bright lance, it is 4 to 5 times the size and immensely more powerful with greater range and a higher rate of fire. Okay, don't really have anything for the higher rate of fire. However, we can absolutely make it bigger. So the range on the bright lance was 300. For the pulsar, we'll go ahead and make that 400. The damage, I will go ahead and make a +3, so we're stepping up in the number of dice and the type of dice. It's fire. The size is going to be restricted to huge, because we're moving up to super heavy tanks now. Capacity is 100, and there is no special. Okay, that's like the opposite of the distortion gun. The other one was super complicated. This one is super simple. I like simple. Okay, next, Sonic Lance. We'll paste that in. Sonic Lance. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. We got to go back and actually look at examples. So, under heavy weapons, we actually do have some sonic weapons. In particular, we have this Screamer. So there's the Thunderstrike, the LFD, and the HFD. These are all blast weapons that can deafen. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to use this. So they do specifically sonic damage. And in terms of range, this one is 60 feet. So I'm going to make this one 120 feet. The damage is sonic. Or no, wait, the damage is +3. The damage type is sonic. Size is, of course, going to be huge. Capacity 100. The special, it is a blast weapon, so it shoots out in a cone. Alright, and that's really all we need for that. Next up is the Wraith Gate. Now, the Wraith Gate is a webway portal that is inside of the tank. That is not a gun. That is more like equipment, and we're not going to have this until we go through FTL, so we're going to ignore that for now. Next is the Distortion Scythe. Fortunately, we've already determined, how these things work. So, Distortion Scythe. Distortion Scythe. Okay. So the thing about the Distortion Scythes is that they are similar to the Distortion Cannon, but not quite as big and bad. And they are wielded by these Wraith Fighters. So, I mean, we're almost done here. So, Infinity Circuits, Mind Shock Pods, here we go. Heavy D Scythes. So, the D Scythe, or Distortion Scythes, are advanced Eldar weapons considered a sinister and taboo weapon. D Scythes can rip the soul out of its enemy and banish it to the warp. When fired, a D Scythe emits no visible blast and leaves behind no damage. Save the motionless... Oh, that's right, I forgot these are not actually smaller versions of the D Cannon. Never mind. We are doing this from scratch. Okay then. First off, size. This thing is going on the Wraith Fighter. So let's look at that. These are only medium. So the size will be any. The capacity, we'll go ahead and make that 100. The type of these is going to just be... I don't even know. I'm just going to put a question mark. The damage doesn't exist. So there is no damage. The range of this thing, however... we'll get to that in a second. Because the first thing we have to do is figure out exactly what does this thing do. So, it just says it is considered a sinister and taboo weapon. They rip the soul of an enemy out of their body and banish it to the warp. Now, interestingly enough, let's be very specific here. It's not that it's ripping your soul out, but it's ripping your psychic imprint out. I mean, we call them souls, but what Eldar Spirit Stones do is they actually imprint the psychic pattern of whoever it was, and that's enough to kind of save who they were. So saying that this thing rips your soul out is a little bit of a misnomer. That being said, though, honestly, when you're getting hit by it, it doesn't matter what you call it. So, here's what I think I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is this. Do you remember when we made the Dire Sword? I was just talking about this earlier. The Dire Sword. So the way this weapon works is when it hits you, it is a sword, and it is a power weapon, so it hits you and it slashes you or stabs you, whatever. It's a really badass sword, and a tier 4 Dire Sword does do 12d8 slashing damage. But the really insidious part of the Dire Sword is the mental attack. So it requires an installed Spirit Stone for it to work, and when you actually hit somebody with it, it tries to destroy their psychic imprint. And so what happens is every time you get hit, you have to make a DC 15 will save. On a fail, you advance on the mental disease track equal to the tier of the Dire Sword. What I think we're going to do here... is this, okay? This is kind of brilliant, but still terrifying. Okay, range I will get to later. Damage. The damage is 1. The type doesn't matter. Because here's what we're going to do. And can I move this over? Yes, I can. Okay. What's going to happen here is... How did we put this over here? Right, mental attack. So, mental attack. And I'm going to copy this actually, because we're going to reuse it. Go ahead. Okay. And we're just going to alter this. So, this says on wound, will DC 15. On fail, you advance the mental disease track equal to the Dire Sword tier. In this case, we are going to advance on the mental disease track equal to the damage rolled. Do not, hold on, do not multiply the damage from this weapon. Otherwise, it would be just an instant kill every single time you hit it, or you got hit with it. So, that means that if you were to install this on a small weapons mount, it deals 1d4s. So you roll 1d4, and if you hit somebody with it, they will advance on the mental disease track up to 4. For a medium weapon, that is 6. For a heavy weapon, that is 8. That means that if you were to get hit by a heavy version of this weapon, it could, I mean, it is a 12.5% chance of being instantly fatal. Actually, no. I think there's only 7 points on the mental disease track, so that's like a 25% of it being instantly fatal. Either way, we're not multiplying the damage on this. So this is going to be mental attack. There we go. And I put that in the wrong place. Here we go. Let's just move that up. There we go. Okay then. So the distortion scythe, we got it. Next up is Wraith cannons. Now I think these are just cannons, but we'll find out. So Wraith cannon, it is a Wraith weapon. And we'll get in, we're still going to get into the Wraiths here. We may not get a whole lot done on the Wraiths, but we're going to get into the Wraiths. And that is not what I wanted to paste. So copy, paste. Because that is like the last vehicle weapon. Now we're getting to the actual Wraith weapons. So Wraith Knight. They use heavy Wraith cannons, sun cannons, ghost glaives, scatter shields. Actually, you know what? Before we do the Wraith cannons, and I mean, this is probably just a pretty regular weapon. Is it a large weapon? Here we go. So, a Wraith cannon is an Eldar vortex weapon with deadly potency similar to the D cannon. See, I told you, I knew that it was going to come in handy. That's why we called it a singularity. Instead of making it some kind of really unique thing specific to that, they carry vortex weapons. Okay. Since we're on to Wraith weapons, why don't we go ahead and back up and we start talking about the Wraiths themselves. After all, the Wraiths were the point of this stream in the first place, and it's already been an hour and a half. We're doing good. So we're going to come back here. Now, the thing about the Wraiths, and it's about time that we really pull up a thing and look at them. So, Wraith Knight, Eldar Knight. I want to find Wraiths. So, we'll go into the Eldar portal here. Eldar Societies, Eldar Worlds. The Webway, Wraithbone, Military Codices. Here we go. Infinity Circuit, made out of Wraithbone. Related to Spirit Stones. Okay, this is the overview. And it's not showing me anything in here about Wraith Guards. Oh, no, wait, there it is. Wraith Guards. Here's what I wanted to look at. So we've got Wraith Guards there, and over here. We also have Wraith Guards. So let's see what we can learn. So there is a Wraith Guard. We've got a picture of one. That's what they look like. So the Wraith Guard of the Craft World Eldari are not living warriors. They are artificial robotic constructs called Ghost Warriors, created from the complex psychoplastic material crafted by the Ascionari of the Craft Worlds known as Wraithbone. Each Wraith Guard has a Spirit Stone containing the soul of an elite Eldari warrior that was drawn out of the Infinity Circuit of the Craft World. Wraith Guard are smaller in size than Wraith Lords and carry a weapon known as a Wraith Cannon, which is a short-range but potent weapon capable of opening a small rift into the warp, which sucks the target or pieces of the target within the immaterium. When used against infantrymen, the result is fatal, but that's about the cannon. I want to know about them. So they see through the warp using what is known as Wraith Sight, but as the warp is a tumultuous place, Wraithguards often have trouble discerning the true nature of real space, and so can find themselves blinded and unable to function effectively. Because of this tendency, they are often led into battle by warlocks who help to guide them. Only in times of great need are the Asunnari dead stirred from their slumber in the Infinity Circuits and brought into battle. So, what we're looking at here is not a vehicle so much as it is essentially a race. So, much like in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you have the Warforged, who are metallic automatons, who otherwise have their own personalities. They can speak, they can talk, they can do whatever a normal person could do. But their constructs, that is essentially what the Wraithguard are. What does it say over here? So, I mean, there's another great picture of a Wraithguard. So, Wraithguard are Eldar warriors whose spirits are saved from death itself and arise once more to wage war for their kin. Some are also known as Wraith Blades. These warriors are saved through the guidance of a spirit seer who removes the fallen warrior's spirit stone from the Infinity Circuit in order to place it into the psychoplastic body made of Wraithbone. Through the act, the robotic body is empowered with the living intellect that guides its artificial nature. This is done only in times of emergency or when there's a lack of warriors. Because the act of placing the Eldar essence into such a construct is considered aberrant, among their race, akin to necromancy, none can deny the resulting warrior that emerges from the combination that adds to their arsenal against their enemies. So, what we're going to do here is we are going to create 2 new races. One of them is going to be a Wraith Guard. The other will be a Wraith Knight, because both of them are created in the same way. Or I guess maybe a Wraith Lord. Also called an Iron Knight, Wraith Giant. It's an Eldar Dreadnought. So yeah, it's also known as a Ghost Warrior. Where does this take me? Ghost Warrior. Does this give me like all the different kinds? It does! Okay, here we go. So we got their role, but forms of the Ghost. Wraith Lords, which we were just looking at. They are lithe but mighty nobles that dwarf even their Wraithguard cousins. These statuesque robotic constructs are extremely precious. Okay. Wraith Knights, many times larger than even the mighty Wraith Lords. These war machines known as Wraith Knights are still dexterous enough to run through the shattered city. Okay, so here we go. Let's think about this. Okay. So, according to this vehicle list, the Wraith Knight is considered a super heavy walker. Okay? It's considered a super heavy walker. Now, we already have super heavy tanks. So, if a super heavy tank is regarded as huge, then perhaps the Wraith Knight should also be huge. Which means that for the tank, we're looking at something with a space of, well, this says 15 feet. I think we're making ours 20. We made ours 20, I think. Minimum... Or no, we made ours huge. Ours are 40 foot. Okay, that's fine. So 40 foot by 40 foot by 40 foot. Oh, wait, hold on. Typical height and length. So 40 foot tall would make it actually gargantuan. So a Wraith Knight is going to be a gargantuan creature. I should probably write that down. So we'll just make a note like right here. So we're going to say Wraith Blade, Wraith Guard, Wraith Lord, Wraith Knight. Okay, and a Wraith Knight is going to be gargantuan, tall. Okay. Now, according to this, they are many times larger than even the mighty Wraith Lords. And it says up here that Wraith Lords dwarf their Wraith Guard cousins. So let's scroll down here. Wraith Guard. They are shaped from the immensely resilient substance. Yes. The same exquisite designed and flowing organic shapes of all the other constructs, but they're often decorated with stylized runes and gems. I do believe that these guys should be medium size. And then there's the Wraith Blades, which I think these guys are just Wraith Guards, but different. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we got that. Give me just a second. I got a dog barking and I gotta go do something about that. I'll be right back. Barking at the wind. That was just intentional to make me run up and down 4 flights of steps. Okay, so if Wraith Knights are going to be gargantuan and Wraith Guards are going to be medium, I don't think medium differentiates between long or tall. Nope. That leaves, what do we do with the Wraith Lords? And I don't know. What we could do is we could actually kick up the Wraith Knight to Colossal. And if we kicked up the Wraith Knight to Colossal, we could then split the difference with the Guard being medium, the Knight being Colossal, and the Wraith Lord could be huge. Which I think is probably pretty good. The only other thing that I can think of is, what about this Phantom Battle Titan? Or Scout Titan, or Battle or Warlock Titan? What are these? Are these also Knights? It's the largest of the Eldar Titans. And we haven't even really looked at this yet. It's not even mentioned in here. So we got Wraith Blades. Shadow Councils, Notable Campaigns, don't care. Okay. So, yeah, they don't even mention these. So we're just going to do what we can with what we've got here, and we will maybe adapt? I don't know. Hold on. Let's think about this. So it is the largest of the Eldar Titans. So, like, if anything, this should be the Colossal. And if I look at Eldar Titans, they are the Revenant Titan, Phantom Titan, and Warlock Titan, which means that these are all the same thing. So, Rev, Phantom, Warlock. Rev, Phantom, Warlock. So these are all the same thing. That leaves the Wraith Knight. So let's just put in here a Wraith Titan. So obviously this is going to be Colossal then. Tall. And since we got 4 of these now, does that change anything? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't really help because these guys are the same size. Maybe we should make the Wraith Guard large then. Maybe. So large, huge, gargantuan, and then colossal. That means that's not actually too out of the way, because like if this was a fantasy game, it would not be that uncommon. It is uncommon, but it wouldn't be that uncommon to have a large person. Maybe they're playing like a full orc or something. Or like a half giant or something like that. They would classify as a large character. So having these guys be large is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay then. We're probably not going to get through all of these today, but let's at least establish a few things. In fact, we actually could, but we just gotta get through this stuff. Okay, so we need these. So first off, subtype. These guys are all going to be constructs. And I don't know if we have that in here. So, bestiary creature types. Here we go. Construct. A construct is a magically animated object or artificially created creature. They have dark vision to 60 feet, low light vision. Construct immunities, they are unliving, which means you set their constitution modifier to nothing. They must have either the magical or technological subtype. If the construct is mindless, set its intelligence to nothing as well. So, these guys are going to be a construct and technological. Now, ability modifiers. So here's the thing about the ability modifiers. By default, when you create one of these wraiths, they have no intelligence, no wisdom, and no charisma, because they don't have a mind. All you have to do is plug the stone in, and then it comes to life. So, what we have here is a construct that will have no constitution. And its other 3 stats are going to be given to it by, the stone that's installed. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a +2 to strength and a +2 to dexterity. Now, that on its own is a bit of a problem because you're only allowed to give 1 bonus for free. If you give 2, you're supposed to penalize somewhere, which we're going to do. Hit points. The hit points for this thing are going to be... I don't even know. I really don't. Constructs. So, biological processor, clockwork stuff. Actually, you know what? Hold on. We'll borrow from the androids. We will borrow from the androids. And an android's hit die is somewhere around here. There's its ability adjustment. Ah, there we go. Hit points 4. Actually, I'm going to kick that up to a 6 because it is bigger. Size and type. It is a large construct. Languages. Common and Eldari, obviously. Well, actually, languages... The languages will be from the Spirit Stone. So whatever stone gets plugged into it will have all of that information. Come on. Am I not allowed to adjust this? Fine, whatever. Just gonna drive me up a wall. Okay, now, in terms of what does this thing get? Let's back this up to constructs. So, by default, constructs have dark vision and low light vision. Well, that's not going to be true for a Wraith, because they don't have any kind of vision except for that Wraith vision. What was it called? I forget what it was called. Wraith Lord. Let's see. Safely speaking. So the roll, here we go. Despite the fact that it exists in real space, the controller isn't able to perceive reality nearly as well. It's called Wraiths Sight. So it has Wraith Sight. Because of Wraith Sight, it has to perceive everything through the warp, which means that it technically cannot see anything that is not a part of the warp. So, being that it has to see things through the warp, it is going to take... It's going to take a pretty hefty penalty. That is, it is going to take a penalty of a, say, -4 on all... Well, actually, hold on. That's getting really complicated. It's getting really complicated. We're going to make this much easier, okay? We're going to make this super, super easy. Treats every target as though it has partial concealment. And I'm going to call that... Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to go ahead and say partial concealment 25%. That means that on every single time it does anything that requires it to hit a target, there is a 25% chance that it might miss. Which sounds really, really awful, but the things that we're going to get out of it. So, construct immunities. They can't be diseased, they don't get sick. See, unliving? Doesn't actually define what these immunities are. That's okay, though. That's okay. Because I can do that over here. Even if they're not going to show it there, I can do that here. So where is the bestiary? There it is. Here we go. By type. Constructs. Doesn't really matter because I just want to be able to click on this. So, this is from Pathfinder, obviously, but the two do run concurrently. Construct has a base 10 hit points, base attack bonus equal to total hit dice, that's fine. Okay, this is what we care about, though. It has no constitution score, which is exactly what we saw in Starfinder. Low light vision, dark vision, same thing. Immune to all mind-affecting charms, or effects, so charms, compulsions, morale effects, patterns, and phantasms. It is immune to bleed, disease, death, necromancy, paralysis, poison, sleep, and stun. It cannot heal on its own, but it can be repaired. It is not subject to ability damage, ability drain, fatigue, exhaustion, energy drain, or non-lethal damage. It is immune to any effect that requires a fortitude save, unless it also affects objects. It is not at risk of death from massive damage, although it is immediately destroyed when reduced to 0 hit points. It cannot be raised or resurrected, but we're not playing with magic, so... they are hard to destroy, gain bonus hit points based on size, as shown on the following table. You mean preceding table? Yeah, preceding table. Proficient with natural weapons, unless it's generally humanoid, in which case be proficient in any weapon mentioned in its entry. Not proficient with armor, they do not breathe, eat, or sleep. All right, so because of that, I mean, we're going to be generally using this, I think, but that's fine. So the Wraith sight is how they see the world. They can otherwise transit everything as normal because they're a large construct. They take up a 10 by 10 area. Well, 10 by 10 by 10. This is pretty good. As for hit points, this is hard. Because it's hard because the body technically doesn't have levels, but the spirit stone that is implanted will. So how are we going to assign how are we going to assign how it gets hit points? I don't know. I'll have to consider that a bit. It doesn't matter, though. I can work out that little detail on my own. Let's just make sure that we have everything else. Otherwise, though, I don't think there's anything more that we have to add except for the rule. And that is going to be this. Spirit Stone. So it requires a spirit stone to live. And it uses all the soft ability scores, skills, feats, and proficiencies of the Spirit Stone. So if you, when the Eldar dies and everything gets saved into the Spirit Stone, it's obviously not going to bring its strength, dexterity, and constitution, but it will bring everything else. And so it'll be able to bring the intelligence, wisdom, and charisma into the new body. It will have all of its skills, feats, proficiencies. It'll have all of its languages. It'll just be the same character, new body, new strength, dexterity, constitution, and size. Which, you know, it already gets a +2 strength. Then when you add into the fact that it's a large creature, it's going to get even stronger. And that is just for the Wraith Guard. But, I'm running out of time. I was just informed that I actually have a person coming over, so we're going to have to cut this short here. When we get back, we will make all the adjustments that we need to for the Wraith Lord, Knight, Titan, all of them. I don't think that there's a whole lot that we have to do for that, but we'll make the adjustments anyway. Really, all it's going to change is the size of the construct, and that will give it an inherent bonus to everything along the way. So we'll do that. But that'll be for next time. Again, next week, I don't remember if I'm going to be doing something on Saturday, so I don't know if there's going to be any kind of lecture or not. But, doesn't matter what's going on Saturday, Sunday will still be the stream as usual. And yeah, well, I think we're almost done with the Eldar. We still got to finish up the Wraiths, finish up the Wraith weapons. We have to go through their paths. And I'm not sure how complicated that's going to be. But I think the paths will be the last thing to do. And then we can move on to something else. So, if you want to be here for that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified whenever these videos come out, or whenever the stream comes out, as it were. If you know somebody else who's also into 40k, which right now there's a lot of people who are into 40k, and who are looking for a place that is not Games Workshop to be into 40K, share this video with those people. Our custodes are still men only. Otherwise though, if you're just like me and you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video. If you want to leave comments, you can do so like right now in the chat. But after this stream is over, you can leave them down in the comment section, or you can join the Discord. You can leave comments there. In fact, you can leave whole conversations there. It's the benefit of having a Discord. So, join us over there, especially if you want to play. I'm still looking for players. I've almost got a group. This close. So join us over there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you next time for the next Warhammer stream. And until then, take care.